Hello there and welcome back to another Mordheim character guide. In today's video we will be talking about the melee powers of the Skaven warband, Black SKaven. Black SKaven is the second hero you will unlock for your Skaven warband after the Night Runner. He will be unlocked at level 2 of your warband. He has a quite right equipment proficiency, being able to use fighting claws, daggers, halberds, maces, spears, swords and reaping blades, only not being able to use axes, 200 hammers and 200 swords. You can also use both of the Skaven ranged weapons with the warplock pistols and the shurikens, and you can wear up to light armor and of course clothing. Now, having a look at the Black SKaven stat line, one thing gets pretty clear pretty fast, is the main difference between the Black SKaven and most of your other heroes is that the Black SKaven actually has a pretty high strength rating, which is unusual for Skaven. Most other Skaven only have a really low strength rating. This makes the Black SKaven your main answer to enemy big guys like impressives and heavily armored targets, which your other Skaven with low strength just can't get enough damage into. But also, pretty noticeable is that most of the rest of his stat line is pretty balanced as well. He has high toughness in 14, which is pretty good. He has a high agility in 15, which is also really good and allows you to take things like sidestep rank 2 if you really want to. This makes the Black SKaven your jack of all trades. He can do pretty much anything, because most of his stat lines are high enough. The only exception being his ballistic skill, which is at 9 and pretty low, but like I said, he's pretty much always taken as a melee hero, and pretty much never as a ranged hero because of his low ballistic skill. So you have quite a few options if you play with the Black SKaven. You can do pretty much anything. You can go for a crit build with accuracy 15, not too bad. You can go for a really high strength hit build with a strength of 15, which is what I will show you later in the video. Also his metal stats are not bad. Leadership 14 is not terrible for SKaven, intelligence 10 and alertness 12 are also both not too low. So he is, like I said, an all-rounder. He can do pretty much anything. Has pretty good stats in every regard, and yeah, like I said, jack of all trades. If we have a look at the skills for the Black SKaven now, this is really where his versatility shines and where you have a lot of options how you want to build him. A few must-haves I think every Skaven should have is Swarm, simply because it's Swarm, it gives you a nice boost and it doesn't really cost anything, so always take it. And of course you have your passive skill, which is Perfect Killer, which allows you to bypass 10% of the enemy's armor, which is really nice. And this is one of the other reasons why this guy is really good against bigger enemies like impressives or heavy armored Empire captains or something, just because he can actually damage the guys. In terms of defensive skills, again, you have choice here. A lot of versatility. You can either go for a really high dodge build with his high agility, or for a parry build because of his really high weapon skill. Both options work. In both cases you should either take Web of Steel or Sidestep and maybe boost up his stat line a bit with Flash Parry or something like a Void, just to give you a bit more defensive capability. And of course Onslaught and Prowl are always a good option, just to give you a charge. In terms of offense, I mostly go for a really high strength build because he has high strength and you need the damage. So Strongblow is always a good option. If you're going for heavily armored targets, they will most likely be parrying. Strongblow allows you to go around that parry chance, which is really good. Also it does quite a bit of damage. Mighty Charge, just for that burst damage, it's also really good. Black Hunger is something I recently started taking on a lot of my game because I actually quite like it, especially if you run the Poison Globadier with the Infused Globe, which will actually allow you to heal back up damage you take through Black Hunger. Black Hunger increases your melee damage by 20%, which is quite nice, and allows you also to get even more through dodge and parry, which is also really nice. If you get it to rank 2, it goes up to 40% in both regards and just makes it a solid talent, especially if you get it ranked up. Now for some a bit more funky stuff that you could take. You could take this all to a next level and just build what I like to call a one-punch rat. You could go for Frenzy, which gives you even more damage but sacrifices all of your defensive capability because you can't use any stances anymore, but 30% more damage. And you could go for Daredevil, increasing your melee damage by 75%, but also makes you even more vulnerable, reducing your melee resistance by 20%. Also, the enemy will get a free dodge every time you attack him, but if you're going for a heavily armored target and you have Black Hunger, then in most cases should not be able to dodge. But you have to time Daredevil carefully. It will cost you offensive points, so you won't have another attack after using it, but if you really get that Mighty Charge, Daredevil, Frenzy, Black Hunger thing off, you can do a lot of damage in one single punch. And that can, in some cases, be enough to just one-shot an enemy hero from half health, which is really, really powerful. Also, it's kind of funny to crit for like 200. Some other skills you could think about are Overpower, just for that possible stun. It's always nice to have, but I don't really like it that much because minus 40% chance to hit, even with that high weapon skill, can be a bit tricky to get off. But it's nice, I guess. And you could also go for something like Hardy if you want him to make him a bit more tanky. But in most cases you should be better off if you don't go up to toughness 12. Of course, Art of Silent Death is also always something you could take if you're using Fire Claws like I am. But this character is not crit based, so maybe you're better off spending your skill points somewhere else. But again, versatility, you can take whatever you want and most likely make it work on this guy. This is most likely his biggest strength, that he can do pretty much anything and he isn't bad at anything besides ranged combat, so everything evolving around melee combat he can most likely pull off. Now lastly, let's talk equipment. For weapons on your Black SKaven, I like to run either Fighting Claws for more armor penetration or Weeping Blades for the poison debuff. Both of them work pretty well. But since you have such a high equipment proficiency, you can take pretty much everything. Halberds are also pretty good. You could even do something like dual wield maces just for the extra hit chance, which is actually pretty good in my opinion. Simply because it will allow you to get your one punch, if you want to call it like that, off more reliable. And actually allow you to hit with overpower if you have taken that skill, which is pretty nice. In terms of armor, I usually run light armor if I go for parry build, and clothing if I go for a dodge build for pretty obvious reason. Light armor will give you a bit more defense, and clothing will allow you to push your dodge stance up a bit higher, so both of them work. And for head equipment, I usually give him a helmet, just for the extra bit of defense. And if we look at enchants, for weapons you actually have a wide variety of choices for the Black SKaven in terms of what you want to do with them. You could go for something like Mark of Expertise for the extra hit chance, or Mark of Fury or Mark of Speed just to get through parry or dodge stance better. Mark of Perforation is also really good, it allows you to get even more armor penetration to make him a real tank killer. Or just Mark of Slaying for just even more damage, which is always nice to have. In terms of items, you could give him a healing draught, which is not a bad choice at all, just to give him a bit of emergency healing, especially if you run Black Hunger. It's never a bad choice if you have the spare healing. Go right ahead. But in terms of other equipment, I don't really think there's anything he really needs. You could go for Mandrake Root just to give him a bit more defense, but you also have to consider that you could get stunned pretty easily using this, so there's always a risk. Now that we have talked about the basics, now you should build and equip your Black SKaven, let's talk how about you should play him actually. Well, he has a bit of a different role than most of your other heroes, for the simple fact that he is a bit tougher, and also because of his high strength rating, he's actually pretty good at beating people. So you in most cases want him in a frontline brawl, just straight up fighting heavily armored enemies that he can actually damage, so he can make a way for your lighter SKaven, like your Night Runners or your Assassin's Adapts, to actually get to either to the ranged units or to the enemy leader, so they can start critting them. So in most cases, like I said, you are there to beat up the enemy front line. Kill the henchmen with heavy armor, or try to get through that nasty warrior priest that's blocking your way. And then you can also try to set up your one-punch combo against valuable enemy targets, like heroes or their leader, for example. But you always have to be a little bit more careful with him, because you don't have that, especially early mid-game, you don't have that really high dodge stance most other SKaven have. You actually have the mid parry and the mid dodge in most of the cases. So you need to be a bit more careful with the defenses that you don't get beaten up too hard in the process. Like I said, it's always handy to have a Poison Globadier with the infused globes behind you, so they can heal up a bit of the damage that you're quite possibly going to take. Thanks a lot for watching my Mordheim character guide for the Black SKaven. Now there are only 2 more left to go for the Scale Warband, being the Poison Globadier and the Red Ogre, which I'm going to do last, so the next one is going to be the Globadier. And after that, I think I will have you guys vote on what warband I will cover next. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave me down a like or a comment, or tell me if you didn't like something. It really helps out a lot if I get some feedback on these videos. And if you enjoy my content, consider giving me a sub. Until then, have a nice day.